Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration ship Meridian and watched the massive alien vessel grow larger on the main screen. The Zephyrian capital ship looked like a floating crystal palace made of pure light and energy. It was 10 times bigger than any human ship and beautiful in a way that made his chest feel tight. "First contact with the Zephyrian Collective," said Lisa Rodriguez from her engineering station. "Never thought I would see this day." Danny Harper looked up from his communications panel with excitement in his young eyes. "Captain, they are sending us docking instructions. Their language is strange, but our computers are translating it well." Jake nodded and turned to his medical officer, Kelly Stone. "Are you ready for this, Doc?" Kelly smiled and patted the medical scanner on her belt. "As ready as anyone can be to meet aliens who have ruled 3 star systems for thousands of years." The Meridian moved slowly toward the docking bay of the crystal ship. Jake had spent months preparing for this moment. Earth had finally made contact with one of the major powers in this part of the galaxy. The Zephyrian Collective controlled rich worlds full of rare metals and energy sources that Earth needed. More importantly, they were the gateway to meeting other alien species. The docking was smooth and quiet. Jake felt his stomach flutter as the airlocks connected with a soft hiss. He straightened his uniform and looked at his crew. "Remember, everyone, we are here to make friends and set up trade agreements. We represent all of humanity today." The airlock door opened and Jake got his first look at a real alien. The Zephyrian was tall and thin, made of what looked like living crystal that sparkled with inner light. It had no face as humans understood faces, just shifting patterns of color where a face should be. "Welcome, humans," the alien said in perfect English through their translation device. "I am Guide Crystal Xanthari. High Crystalline Vexithara waits to meet with you." The alien led them through corridors that seemed to be carved from solid diamond. Everything glowed with soft light, and the walls showed moving pictures of Zephyrian history. Jake saw images of great crystal cities, vast fleets of ships and other alien species bowing before Zephyrian leaders. The meeting hall was enormous. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above them and the floor was smooth as glass. At the far end sat High Crystalline Vexithara on a throne made of pure energy. She was larger than the other Zephyrians and her crystal body pulsed with deep blue light. "So," Vexithara said as they approached, "these are the humans from the small world called Earth." Jake stopped a respectful distance from the throne and bowed slightly. "High Crystalline Vexithara, I am Captain Jake Morrison. We come in peace to discuss friendship and trade between our peoples." The alien leader's color shifted to a brighter blue. "Friendship, an interesting word. Tell me, human, what does your species offer to the Great Collective?" Lisa stepped forward with a data pad. "We have detailed information about our technology, our culture, and our resources. Earth has much to offer in terms of innovation and creativity." "Innovation?" Vexithara repeated the word like it tasted strange. "Young species always believe they're small. Discoveries matter to those who have ruled the stars for millennia." Danny shifted nervously beside Jake. The young communications officer was barely 25, and this was his first deep space mission. Jake could see the excitement and worry warring in his face. "We do not claim to know more than the wise collective," Jake said carefully, "but we believe that different perspectives can benefit all parties. Earth seeks partnership, not to be your subjects or to make you ours." The color of Vexithara's crystal body shifted to a harsh red. "Partnership? You speak of partnership with the collective as if you were equals." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Other Zephyrians moved closer and Jake felt his crew tense behind him. Kelly's hand moved toward her medical scanner and Lisa took a small step back. "We respect the power and wisdom of the collective," Jake said slowly, "but Earth has never bowed to any other species. We seek friendship between equals." "Equals." Vexithara's voice became sharp like breaking glass. "Your species learned to leave their world only decades ago. The collective has ruled star systems since before your son was born. You will acknowledge our superiority and submit to our guidance." Jake felt his jaw tighten. He had expected this might happen. The briefings back on Earth had warned that the collective saw other species as servants at best. "High Crystalline, we cannot agree to submit to any other power. Earth governs itself." "Then you are fools," another Zephyrian voice said from the shadows. A new alien stepped into the light, this one darker and more angular than the others. "I am War Crystal Mordeth. I have seen 1,000 species learn to obey the collective. You will learn as well." Danny spoke up for the first time. Why do you need other species to obey you? What are you afraid of? The words hung in the air like a physical thing. Jake felt his heart stop for a moment. Danny's question had cut right to the heart of something the Zephyrians did not want to face. Vexithera rose from her throne, and her crystal body blazed with angry light. Afraid, the collective fears nothing. But we will not tolerate disrespect from inferior beings. We meant no disrespect, Jake said quickly, but it was too late. Mordeth moved faster than Jake thought possible. Crystal tentacles shot out and wrapped around Danny before anyone could react. The young man cried out in surprise but did not struggle. Let him go, Lisa shouted and moved toward them, but more Zephyrians blocked her path. The young one will remain as our guest, Vexithera announced. The rest of you will return to your small world with a message. Earth has 30 of your days to surrender completely to the collective. Your governments will bow before us and accept our rule. Your ships will serve our fleets. Your people will learn their proper place in our order. Jake stepped forward. You cannot do this. Danny is under diplomatic protection. Protection from whom? Mordeth laughed, a sound like crystals grinding together. You have no power here, human. Your species will learn that defying the collective has consequences. Vexithera's color shifted back to blue, but now it seemed cold as ice. If Earth refuses our generous offer of guidance, the young one will die as an example to other species who might consider defying us. 30 days, Captain Morrison. Use them wisely. Kelly started to move toward Danny, but crystal barriers appeared in her path. Jake, we cannot leave him. Captain, Danny called out, his voice steady despite his fear. Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them I'm not afraid. Jake looked into the young man's eyes and saw no panic, only determination. Danny Harper might be young, but he was human, and humans did not break easily. We will be back for you, Danny, Jake promised. The collective will regret this day. As the Zephyrians forced them back toward their ship, Jake was already planning. The collective thought they understood humanity, but they were about to learn how wrong they were. Nobody took a human hostage and lived to tell about it peacefully. The Meridian launched from the crystal ship and turned toward home. Behind them, Danny Harper waited in his crystal prison, not knowing that his capture would start the largest war the galaxy had ever seen. The Meridian traveled through space faster than it had ever gone before. Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair and watched the stars blur past on the main screen. Every second that passed was another second that Danny Harper remained a prisoner of the Zephyrian collective. Lisa Rodriguez worked at her engineering station without stopping. She had pushed the ship's engines beyond their normal limits and refused to slow down. We can maintain this speed for another 18 hours before we need to reduce power, she reported. Kelly Stone moved between stations, checking on the crew. Everyone was tense and angry. The ship felt different without Danny's cheerful voice calling out communications updates. His empty station seemed to stare at them like an accusation. Admiral Wells is waiting for our report, Jake announced. Full priority transmission to Earth Defense Command. The communication system crackled to life and Admiral Patricia Wells appeared on the screen. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Her face was stern as always, but Jake could see the concern hiding behind her professional mask. Captain Morrison, report, she said without greeting. Jake told her everything. He described the meeting with the Zephyrians, their demands for submission, and Danny's capture. Admiral Wells listened without interrupting, but her expression grew darker with each word. They want Earth to surrender in 30 days, Jake finished. They think we will abandon Danny to save ourselves. Admiral Wells was quiet for a long moment. Then she leaned forward and her voice became cold as space itself. Captain, return to Earth immediately. Full emergency protocols are now in effect. The transmission ended and Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had served under Admiral Wells for 10 years and had never heard that tone in her voice before. It was the voice of someone who was about to declare war. Back on Earth, Admiral Wells walked quickly through the corridors of Defense Command. Officers and technicians stopped their work to salute as she passed, but she did not slow down. Her mind was already working on the problem of rescuing Danny Harper and teaching the Zephyrians a lesson they would never forget. She entered the Situation Room where President Alan Carter was waiting with the Emergency Council. The room was full of Earth's most important leaders, including General Frank Davis, Intelligence Director Maria Santos, and Science Advisor Benjamin Shaw. Admiral, President Carter said as she took her seat, we received your preliminary report. Is it true that the Zephyrians have taken one of our people hostage? Yes, sir, Admiral Wells replied. Communications Officer Danny Harper is being held prisoner. The collective demands that Earth submit to their rule, or they will execute him as an example to other species. The room erupted in angry voices. General Davis slammed his fist on the table and shouted about alien arrogance. Director Santos talked about diplomatic options and economic pressure. Science Advisor Shaw mentioned the military capabilities they had observed in Zephyrian ships. President Carter raised his hand, and the room fell silent. Admiral Wells, what do you recommend? Admiral Wells stood up, and her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. We go get him back, sir. We go get him back, and we make sure the collective never threatens another human being again. The Zephyrians have advanced technology, General Davis pointed out. Their ships are larger and more powerful than ours. Size is not everything, General, Admiral Wells replied. Dr. Shaw, what did our people learn about Zephyrian weaknesses? Benjamin Shaw activated a holographic display showing the crystal aliens. Their bodies are made of a crystalline substance that resonates at specific frequencies. The right sonic weapons could shatter their physical forms. Also, their ships use harmonic fields for structural integrity. Disrupt the harmony and their vessels become vulnerable. How long would it take to develop these weapons? President Carter asked. We already have prototypes, Shaw admitted. We have been studying the data from previous encounters with crystalline species. Give me 2 weeks and I can outfit our entire fleet with sonic disruptors. Director Santos leaned forward. Mr. President, perhaps we should try negotiation first. Starting a war with the collective could have serious consequences. Admiral Wells turned to face her with eyes like laser beams. Director Santos, they took one of our people. They threatened to murder him if we do not bow down and become their slaves. There is nothing to negotiate. But the cost, Santos protested. The collective controls 3 star systems. They have allies throughout this region of space. The cost of submission is higher, Admiral Wells said firmly. If we allow the collective to take our people without consequences, every other species in the galaxy will think humans are weak. They will think they can threaten us and we will simply give in. President Carter looked around the room at his advisors. What about the other galactic powers? How will they react if we go to war with the collective? Most species fear the Zephyrians, Shaw explained. They have been bullying smaller civilizations for thousands of years. If we show that the collective can be defeated, it might inspire others to stand up to them as well. General Davis pulled up military reports on his datapad. Admiral, our fleet numbers are smaller than theirs, but our technology is more flexible. Human ships are built for adaptation and quick thinking. Zephyrian vessels seem designed for overwhelming force but not for dealing with unexpected tactics. Admiral Wells nodded. Exactly, General. They have ruled through fear and superior numbers for so long that they have forgotten how to fight an enemy that refuses to be intimidated. President Carter stood up, and the room fell silent again. The decision is mine to make, and I have made it. We do not abandon our own people. We do not bow to alien tyrants. Admiral Wells, you have full authorization to retrieve Officer Harper and deal with the collective as you see fit. The room exploded into activity as everyone began making plans. Admiral Wells felt a grim satisfaction as she watched Earth's war machine begin to move. The Zephyrians thought they understood human nature, but they were about to learn how wrong they were. Dr. Shaw approached her with a tablet full of technical data. Admiral, I can have the sonic weapons ready in 10 days instead of 2 weeks if we work around the clock. Do it, she replied. Also, I want every ship in the fleet equipped with harmonic disruptors. If the collective wants to see what humans do when threatened, we will give them a demonstration they will never forget. Meanwhile, on the collective capital ship, Danny Harper sat in his crystal prison and tried to stay calm. The Zephyrians had put him in a small room made of the same glowing crystal as their bodies. The walls were transparent so they could watch him at all times. High crystalline Vexthara visited him every few hours to ask the same questions. When would Earth surrender? Did he understand that his life depended on his species accepting collective rule? How could humans be so foolish as to resist their obvious superiors? Danny answered the same way every time. Earth does not abandon its people. You made a mistake taking me prisoner. Your confidence will fade as the days pass, Vexthara told him. When your leaders realize the true power of the collective, they will sacrifice you to save themselves. But Danny just smiled and shook his head. You do not understand humans at all. My people will come for me, And when they do, you will wish you had never heard of Earth. As the hours passed and no word came from Earth about surrender, some of the Zephyrians began to look worried. They had expected the humans to cave in immediately when faced with the loss of one crew member. Instead, their monitoring stations picked up massive energy signatures coming from the direction of Earth. Something big was heading their way, and it was moving fast. Exactly 30 days after Danny Harper was taken prisoner, the largest fleet in human history dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Zephyrian territory. Admiral Patricia Wells stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Defiance and watched 200 human warships form into battle formation around her. "Flagship, all ships report ready for combat," announced Commander Ryan Peters from the tactical station. The young pilot had volunteered to lead the first wave of fighter attacks, and his face showed the same cold determination that filled every human heart in the fleet. "Any word from the collective about releasing Officer Harper?" Admiral Wells asked. Communications Officer Carol Hayes shook her head. "Nothing, Admiral. They are maintaining communication silence." Admiral Wells nodded grimly. She had not expected the Zephyrians to surrender Danny without a fight. The collective had ruled through fear for too long to back down easily, but they were about to learn what happened when they threatened the wrong species. "Dr. Shaw, are the sonic weapons online?" she asked. Benjamin Shaw looked up from his science station with satisfaction in his eyes. "All ships are equipped with harmonic disruptors and crystalline frequency weapons, Admiral. We are ready to introduce the collective to human engineering." The first Zephyrian patrol ships appeared on the long-range sensors. There were 12 of them, each one larger than any human vessel. Their crystal hulls sparkled, with energy shields and their weapons charged with deadly light. "Incoming transmission from the lead Zephyrian ship," Hayes reported. "Put it on screen," Admiral Wells ordered. The face of War Crystal Mordeth appeared on the main display. His crystalline features showed patterns of confidence and contempt. "Human fleet, you have entered collective space without permission. Turn back now or face destruction." Admiral Wells stepped forward so that Mordeth could see her clearly. "War Crystal Mordeth, I am Admiral Patricia Wells of the Earth Defense Force. You are holding one of our people prisoner. Release him immediately." Mordeth's crystal body shifted to a darker color. "The human spy will be executed as promised if your species does not submit to collective rule. You have minutes to decide before we destroy your primitive ships." "The only thing being destroyed today," Admiral Wells replied calmly, "is your fleet. Commander Peters, begin the attack." The transmission ended and the battle began immediately. Human fighter squadrons launched from their carriers and streaked toward the Zephyrian ships like angry hornets. The aliens fired their energy weapons, but the human pilots flew with a skill and fury that surprised them. Peters led his squadron in a direct assault on the largest Zephyrian vessel. The alien ship's shields flared as human weapons struck them, but these were not ordinary weapons. The sonic disruptors sent waves of specific frequencies through the crystal hulls, and the harmonic fields that held the ships together began to vibrate dangerously. "Target their resonance points," Peters called over the communication channel. "Make them sing their own death song." The human weapons found their mark, and the first Zephyrian ship began to crack like breaking glass. Fissures ran along its crystal hull as the sonic frequencies tore apart its molecular structure. Within minutes, the mighty alien vessel shattered into a million glittering pieces. Mordeth watched in horror as his ships fell one by one to the human assault. The aliens had expected their superior size and technology to overwhelm the primitive Earth fleet. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that had studied their weaknesses and built weapons specifically to exploit them. "Impossible," Mordeth muttered as another of his ships broke apart under sonic bombardment. "How do they know our vulnerabilities?" On the Defiance, Admiral Wells watched the battle with grim satisfaction. "Signal all ships. No Zephyrian vessel leaves this system alive. We send a message today that the galaxy will remember." Captain Sophie Martinez commanded the heavy cruiser Retribution and led her ship into close combat with a Zephyrian destroyer. Her crew worked with deadly efficiency as they targeted the enemy ship's harmonic stabilizers. The alien vessel tried to escape, but human weapons locked onto its frequency signature and followed it through every evasive maneuver. "Their shields are collapsing," reported Martinez's tactical officer. "Hull resonance is approaching critical levels. Finish them," Martinez ordered coldly. The Zephyrian destroyer came apart in a cascade of crystal fragments that sparkled briefly in the starlight, before going dark forever. Across the battle zone, similar scenes played out as human forces systematically destroyed every enemy ship they encountered. The Collective's advanced technology meant nothing against weapons designed by humans who refused to accept defeat. Meanwhile, on the capital ship deep in Collective space, Danny Harper felt the vibrations through the crystal walls of his prison. He could not see the battle, but he could sense something was happening. The Zephyrians who guarded him seemed nervous and kept checking their communication devices. High crystalline Vexithara arrived at his cell with her crystal body pulsing angry red. "Your people are attacking our outer defenses," she announced. "This foolish gesture will only result in more death." Danny smiled and looked her straight in what passed for her eyes. "I told you that you made a mistake. Humans do not abandon their own. A few hundred ships cannot defeat the might of the Collective," Vexithara replied, but Danny could hear uncertainty in her translated voice. "You still do not understand," Danny said quietly. "This is not about military might. This is about what it means to be human. We would rather die fighting than live as slaves." As if to prove his point, reports began flooding into the capital ship about the destruction of the outer patrol fleets. Every Zephyrian ship that engaged the humans was being destroyed with terrifying efficiency. The aliens who had ruled 3 star systems through superior firepower found themselves facing an enemy that fought with something more powerful than weapons. "How are they destroying our ships so easily?" Vexithara demanded of her military advisors. "They seem to know exactly how to disrupt our crystalline matrices," one advisor reported. "Their weapons are tuned to our specific resonance frequencies." "Change the frequencies," Vexithara ordered. "We have tried high crystalline. Their weapons adapt faster than we can modify our defenses. It is as if they understand our technology better than we do." Danny listened to this exchange with growing pride. His people had not just come to rescue him. They had come prepared to win. The scientists and engineers of Earth had studied every piece of data about Zephyrian technology and built weapons that turned the Collective's greatest strengths into fatal weaknesses. Word spread quickly through the galaxy about the human assault on Collective space. Other alien species monitored the battle frequencies and watched in amazement as the mighty Zephyrians fell before human weapons. Some species that had lived under Collective oppression for centuries began to hope that their tormentors might finally face justice. The Andromedan Trade Union called an emergency session to discuss the implications of human military capability. The Silicon hegemony moved their fleets away from the battle zone. Even the mysterious Void Walkers, who rarely concerned themselves with the affairs of corporeal beings, took notice of the species that would burn star systems to rescue a single individual. As the news of Zephyrian defeats reached the capital ship, Danny Harper sat in his crystal prison and waited patiently for rescue. He knew his people would come for him. The only question was how much of the Collective would be left standing when they arrived. Admiral Wells had made it clear that this was not just a rescue mission. It was a declaration to the galaxy that humanity would not be threatened, would not be bullied, and would not accept the loss of even one of their own. The Zephyrians had wanted to make an example of Danny Harper. Instead, they had given humanity the chance to make an example of them. The human fleet grew larger every day as more ships arrived from Earth and the outer colonies. What had started as 200 vessels became 300, then 400, then 500 ships, all dedicated to one mission, bringing Danny Harper home and teaching the galaxy what happened when humans were threatened. Admiral Wells established her forward command on the battleship Retribution as human forces pushed deeper into Collective space. Every Zephyrian military base they encountered was systematically destroyed. Every government facility was reduced to glittering dust. Every symbol of Collective power was erased from existence. "Status report," Admiral Wells ordered as she entered the command center. Captain Sophie Martinez looked up from the tactical display. "We have taken control of the outer rim systems, Admiral. Zephyrian resistance is collapsing faster than their leadership expected." Chief Engineer Pete Coleman worked at a bank of computers analyzing captured Zephyrian technology. His team had spent weeks learning how to turn the aliens' own systems against them. "Admiral, we have successfully hacked their communication networks. The Collective leadership is in complete panic." "What are they saying?" Wells asked. Coleman activated a translation program and Zephyrian voices filled the command center. The aliens were arguing among themselves, blaming each other for the disaster, and desperately trying to understand how their mighty empire was falling to a species they had dismissed as primitive. "They keep asking the same question," Coleman reported. "How do the humans know so much about our technology? They think we must have been planning this attack for years." Admiral Wells smiled grimly. "In a way, we have been. Every species that has ever encountered the collective and survived has shared information about their methods. The galaxy is full of people who wanted someone to stand up to these bullies. The truth was that Earth had spent decades collecting data about every major alien power in their region of space. When the Zephyrians took Danny Harper, all that preparation had focused into a weapon more deadly than any bomb: human determination, combined with detailed knowledge of enemy weaknesses." On the bridge of the carrier Liberty, Commander Ryan Peters led another wave of fighters toward a Zephyrian fortress world. The planet's surface was covered with crystal cities that sparkled like jewels, but Peters felt no admiration for their beauty. Every building down there represented the oppression of smaller species who had been forced to serve collective interests. "Remember, people," Peters announced to his squadron, "we are not targeting civilians, military installations only. We are not here to conquer. We are here to rescue our friend and teach these aliens that humans cannot be intimidated." The fighters dove toward the planet's surface while sonic weapons charged to full power. The Zephyrian defensive systems tried to stop them, but human ships moved with an unpredictability that confused alien targeting computers. Where Zephyrian vessels flew in perfect formations, human pilots twisted and turned like wild animals, striking where the enemy least expected. The first military base shattered under sonic bombardment, its crystal towers resonating at their destruction frequency until they collapsed into ruins. The second base tried to shield itself with harmonic barriers, but human engineers had learned to counter every collective defense. Within hours, the planet's military capability was completely destroyed. Peters led his fighters back to the Liberty, knowing that another Zephyrian stronghold had fallen to human fury. Meanwhile, the political structure of the collective was beginning to crack under pressure. High Crystalline Vexithara called emergency meetings with the ruling council, but her subordinates were losing faith in her leadership. "You told us the humans would surrender when faced with our power," accused Council Crystal Dexmarin. "Instead, they are destroying everything we have built over thousands of years. How are we to know they would react so extremely to the capture of one individual?" Vexithara replied, her crystal body flickering with stress patterns. "Perhaps," suggested another council member, "we should release the human prisoner and attempt to negotiate peace." "Negotiate?" War Crystal Mordith's voice cracked like breaking stone. "The humans have made it clear they will accept nothing less than our complete destruction. They do not fight like any species we have encountered. They fight as if every ship, every station, every crystal of our civilization is personally responsible for their friend's captivity." The truth of his words was proven every day as human forces advanced. Other alien species had always fought for territory or resources or political advantage. Humans fought for something the collective could not understand: the absolute refusal to abandon one of their own. Reports flooded in from across collective space. Human ships had appeared in the Andorian system and destroyed the Zephyrian administrative center there. The mining colonies in the Vega sector had gone silent after human forces eliminated their collective overseers. Even the core worlds were under threat as Earth's fleet moved steadily inward. In his crystal prison, Danny Harper had become a symbol of hope for every species that had suffered under collective rule. Word of the human rescue mission had spread through underground networks and slave populations across 3-star systems. For the first time in centuries, oppressed beings dared to believe that the Zephyrians could be defeated. Danny himself remained calm despite the chaos around him. His guards had become increasingly nervous as reports of human victories reached the capital ship. Some of them looked at him with something approaching fear, as if he might suddenly develop the same terrifying capabilities his species displayed in battle. "Your people are destroying everything," one guard told him during a routine check. "When will they stop?" Danny looked at the crystalline being with steady eyes. "When I am free and the collective agrees to leave human space forever. High people do not make half measures." High Crystalline Vexthera made one final attempt at communication with the human fleet. Her message was broadcast on all frequencies as Admiral Wells's forces approached the core systems. Admiral Wells, Vexithera's translated voice carried across space. Surely we can reach an agreement. The collective is willing to discuss the release of your crew member in exchange for an immediate ceasefire. Admiral Wells received the message on the bridge of the Defiance, surrounded by her senior officers. The faces around her showed the same cold determination that had driven them across hundreds of light years. Open a channel, Wells ordered. The main screen activated, and Admiral Wells found herself face to face with the alien leader who had started this war. High Crystalline Vexithera, you had 30 days to negotiate. You chose to threaten execution instead. Now you have until we reach your homeworld to surrender unconditionally. Surely you cannot mean to destroy our entire civilization for one individual. Vexithera protested. Watch us, Wells replied and cut the transmission. The words spread across the galaxy faster than light as other species monitored the communication. The humans had made their position clear. They would burn star systems to ash before they would abandon one of their own. The collective had wanted to make an example of Danny Harper, but instead they had given humanity the chance to demonstrate why their species should never be underestimated. As the human fleet approached the final battle, Danny Harper sat in his crystal cell and smiled. He could feel the vibrations getting stronger as his people came closer. Soon he would be free, and the galaxy would have learned a lesson it would never forget about the price of threatening humanity. The final battle began in the space around Zephyros Prime, the ancient homeworld of the collective. Admiral Wells stood on the bridge of the Defiance and watched as 500 human ships formed the largest attack formation in Earth's history. Ahead of them, the last desperate defenders of the collective waited in their crystal ships, knowing that defeat meant the end of their empire. All ships report ready for the final assault, announced Commander Ryan Peters from his position aboard the fighter carrier Liberty. His voice carried across the fleet communication channels with the same cold determination that had driven humanity across the galaxy. The Zephyrian capital ship hung in orbit above, their homeworld like a glittering mountain of living crystal. It was larger than any vessel humans had ever seen, protected by energy shields that could withstand the explosion of a small star. But Admiral Wells had not come this far to be impressed by alien technology. Dr. Shaw, are the harmonic disruptors calibrated for the capital ship's resonance frequency? She asked. Benjamin Shaw looked up from his science station with fierce satisfaction in his eyes. Admiral, we have analyzed their ship's harmonic signature from our long-range sensors. One concentrated sonic bombardment should cause a cascade failure throughout their entire vessel. Captain Martinez, take the Retribution and the heavy cruiser squadron directly at their command ship, Wells ordered. Commander Peters, I want every fighter in the fleet hitting their escort vessels. We end this today. The battle erupted with a fury that lit up the darkness of space. Human ships struck like lightning at every Zephyrian vessel they could find. The aliens fought back with weapons that could melt asteroids and shields that bent space itself. But they were fighting an enemy that had spent months learning how to counter every advantage the collective possessed. Peters led his fighter squadrons in a swirling attack pattern that confused the Zephyrian targeting computers. Human pilots flew with a reckless courage that amazed even their own commanders, diving through enemy fire to strike at critical weak points with surgical precision. Focus sonic fire on Grid 7, Peters called to his squadron as they attacked a Zephyrian destroyer. Make it sing its death song. The destroyer's crystal hull began to vibrate as human weapons found its resonance frequency. Cracks appeared along its surface like a spider web of light, and then the entire ship shattered into a million glittering fragments that caught the light of the system's star. On the capital ship, High Crystalline Vexithera watched her fleet die around her with growing desperation. Every tactical advantage the collective had relied on for thousands of years was useless against these humans, who fought like beings possessed by fury. How many ships have we lost? She demanded of her tactical officer. 70% of our fleet is destroyed or disabled, High Crystalline. The humans are targeting our command vessels specifically. They seem to know exactly where to strike for maximum damage. Vexithera's crystal body pulsed with patterns of fear and rage. Prepare the capital ship's main weapon. If we cannot defeat them, we will take as many humans with us as possible. But even as her crew worked to charge their most powerful weapon, human forces were already surrounding the massive vessel. Captain Martinez brought the Retribution close enough to the capital ship that their sonic weapons could penetrate its shields, while Admiral Wells coordinated the attack from multiple directions. Deep inside the capital ship, Danny Harper felt the vibrations growing stronger as the battle raged around him. His crystal prison shook with each impact, and he could hear the sounds of combat echoing through the corridors. The Zephyrian guards who had watched him for months now looked at him with something approaching terror. "Your people are destroying everything," one guard said, his translated voice shaking with fear. "When will they stop their attack?" Danny smiled and looked directly at the crystalline being. "When I am free and when your people learn that humans do not abandon their own." Suddenly, the sound of human weapons fire echoed through the ship's corridors. Colonel Amy Thompson had led a boarding party through a breach in the capital ship's hull, fighting their way through Zephyrian defenders toward the prison levels where Danny was held. "Move fast, people," Thompson called to her squad as they advanced. "Harper is somewhere in this crystal maze and we are bringing him home." The rescue team fought their way through corridors that seemed designed to confuse invaders. Zephyrian defenders tried to stop them, but human soldiers moved with a determination that could not be slowed. They had come too far and sacrificed too much to be stopped now. Meanwhile, Admiral Wells continued the assault on the capital ship's critical systems. "Target their harmonic stabilizers," she ordered. "Bring down their shields so our people can get inside." The massive vessel shuddered as human weapons found their mark. Its crystal hull began to develop stress fractures and its shields flickered like a dying flame. The pride of the collective was coming apart under the focused fury of humanity's finest. Inside his prison, Danny heard the sound of human voices getting closer. He stood up and moved to the crystal wall, pressing his hand against its surface. "I am here," he called out. "Danny Harper, communications officer of the Meridian." Colonel Thompson's voice came back strong and clear. "We hear you, Danny. Step back from the wall." The crystal barrier exploded inward as human sonic charges shattered its molecular structure. Through the glittering dust stepped Colonel Thompson and her rescue team, their faces showing the joy of a mission accomplished. "Officer Harper," Thompson said with a smile, "Admiral Wells sent us to bring you home." Danny felt tears in his eyes as he saw the familiar sight of human faces and heard English spoken by people who had crossed the galaxy to find him. "I knew you would come. I never doubted it for a second." As the rescue team fought their way back to their ship, the capital ship continued to fall apart around them. High Crystalline Vexithera made one final desperate transmission to Admiral Wells. "Please," the alien leader's voice carried across space. "We surrender. Stop the destruction and we will give you anything you demand." Admiral Wells looked at the image of the broken alien on her screen. "High Crystalline Vexithera, your collective is finished. Your military is destroyed, your government is dissolved, and your empire is at an end. But because humanity is not a species of conquerors, we will show you mercy you never showed others." The terms were simple and absolute. The collective would disband immediately. All oppressed species would be freed from Zephyrian rule. Reparations would be paid to every civilization the collective had wronged. And never again would they threaten or harm any human being. Danny Harper returned to Earth as the hero of the greatest rescue mission in human history. But when President Carter asked him to speak to the crowds that gathered to welcome him home, Danny insisted that the real heroes were the thousands who had risked everything to bring him back. "This is what humanity is," Danny told the cheering crowds. "We do not abandon our own. We do not bow to tyrants. And we will cross the galaxy itself before we accept the loss of a single human life to alien threats." The story spread across the galaxy faster than light. Every species now knew what it meant to threaten a human being. The collective's fall served as a warning that would echo among the stars for generations. Humanity protects its own, and the price of testing that resolve is the burning of worlds. In the end, they had held Danny Harper hostage, and Earth had burned the galaxy for him. The universe would remember.